Let's get this started. Hello, everyone that's out there. My name is Darrell Booker. So excited you were able to join me. I'm assuming this afternoon, where most everybody is. I think today will be a great conversation, even though I'll be just talking directly to you. I do also have some people in the background. Ali will be helping me out and possibly dropping some links and things. But let's get this started. My name is Darrell Booker. Work for this company you might have heard of called Microsoft. They putting on this thing today called Ignite that you evidently joined. But I'm a corporate affairs specialist is my official title under the philanthropies department. I'll break down in a little while exactly what does that fancy title mean. For me, myself, I think I'm terming myself these nowadays as a technology strategist. I think that really fits just my personal evolution, 20 plus years in tech and mostly around application development and, even earlier than that, just regular PC support. But now, utilizing a lot of my talents in a more scaled way to just be able to bring not only my industry knowledge, but the knowledge of those I'm working with, the knowledge of the great things that we're doing at Microsoft, to be able to, help our community and help those that are around. And that's what this session here today is about, is transforming communities. And what does that actually look like? And we'll get to that in a minute. A couple more funny titles. So I'm self-proclaiming myself as your techie's favorite techie. I don't know if there's any cooler techie than me. I'm going to take that title for now until someone comes and steals it from me. But I think the title that is extremely funny is by a gentleman named Dave out of Chicago with the new social justice organization. I talked to him on the other day, and he said, Darrell, I don't know much about you, but I know you're a computer person with a mission. And I just bust out laughing because that's definitely it. Definitely a computer person. But I do have a mission. My mission is to, hopefully educate as many people, not only about technology, but just how technology can be used in a way that uplifts as many people, not only in this country, but in the world. Couple ground rules. So absolutely no slides, no demos, just me. So just listen. The only thing that I maybe urge you to do is get a pen, because hopefully I drop enough good gems that you'll say, you know what, let me write that down. Let me check into that. Ali and the team will hopefully be dropping some links in the chat as well around anything, that's interesting. And if I kind of look about everything I'm going to talk about over the next 25 plus minutes, you're going to get a little of me, a little bit more of Microsoft, but most of what I want to talk about today is our communities, what's happening in these communities and actually how are we transforming them with the help of the nonprofits, that are doing great work. And, you may say to yourself, what are some of the things that are happening? And honestly, if you're listening to this and you're not necessarily heavily involved in nonprofit, or maybe you've done a little bit of volunteering, but, wanting to know what else is out there, let me give you a couple examples. An organization, honestly, I just talked to for the first time 2 days ago. Let me back up. I tell people all the time I have the best job in the world because I literally get to talk to some amazing nonprofits every single day that are doing incredible things all across the country. Very humble people, very inspiring. It actually checks me on a daily basis to say, okay, what are you doing? But one of those is Umi Feeds. And ironically, they were featured, or the work they was doing was featured in a CNN article just this past weekend, as they were part of creating the largest free food forest in this country to help address with food insecurities in the Atlanta area. To organizations that have been around 50 plus years, like Brotherhood Crusade, a very grassroots organization that mostly through their youth programming are touching annually 100,000 youth in the South LA area. They're the real MVPs, if you ask me. Or another organization I met for the first time today, and I was absolutely blown away. by Kara Branch. Her organization is Black Girls Do Engineering, and that's literally the title, I believe. The website, blackgirlsdoengineering.org. Um, and she created that because, she wanted, more for her daughter to get into more of the STEM field. And the particular area where she is, she said, uh, I didn't want my daughter to be the only one. And what she meant by that was the only Black girl in said program. And she said, as a mother, these were the things that she had experienced growing up. I totally can relate to that because, I was the only Black in a lot of classes growing up. So she decided to create her own nonprofit in 2019. In 2019, she created her own nonprofit. They entered a competition with 70 plus teams across the country, and the competition was to create some prototype of a headgear for astronauts when they're traveling to Mars, I believe, to not have radiation. And her team won it out of 70 plus teams across the country. And she said they were at a disadvantage because a lot of these teams were, put on by schools who could actually, work and plan and build and innovate during the workday when she actually had to just work with her youth after school. Um, and she has a really aggressive goal. She wants to get, 2 million Black girls trained up in engineering by 2050. And the question is what can we do? When I say we, what can we as Microsoft do? What could you on the other end, of this screen do to help these type of organizations, that are doing these things? And there's even organizations that are even newer. When we think back to last July, and a lot of the protests and things that were happening, a new organization popped up. And I don't even think it popped up then. It actually got started later when a woman said, this lady said, I want to get a list of all the Black-led nonprofits across this country, so that I can put this list out to start donating. And she literally started this with the Google sheet, but a Google sheet to start capturing all of these organizations. And some months later, that turned into a really exciting, I say, startup nonprofit called Give Black, who I'm personally working with to be able to elevate them from just a simple spreadsheet to the technology that they need to be able to support tens or hundreds of thousands of organizations that's going to be part of their platform, which they have some very exciting things that they have coming ahead with that. So definitely be on the lookout for that. I think it's giveblack.org without the A. Or another one, it's called Atlanta Black Owned Relief. And that one was started also out of, the protest this summer. And it was to support some of the Black businesses who were damaged, and started as just a GoFundMe campaign. But now it's actually is a real nonprofit, and they're starting to diversify the things that they're doing, including an early start program to be able to help youth with, to get on their entrepreneur track, to bring them mentors, to, tell them the ins and outs of running businesses, tech, finance, etc., so that they can actually start to build those next set of entrepreneurs. So they can be prepared in the future if there's anything that occurs. So these are some of the community, ways that people are doing things to transform communities. But I think before you actually transform the community, you have to strengthen the community. And that's where we are really, leaning in right here. And it kind of all started, at least for Microsoft, back on June 23rd. And our CTO, Satya, put out a blog addressing racial injustice. And Ali, if you have that link, if you can drop it in there for people so they can see it. There were quite a few racial equity commitments that, we as a company, set to take on. And, we'll say, as a Microsoft employee and as a Black male that's a Microsoft employee, I'm very proud of what these initiatives are, and where we are and what we're doing, and what some of those are. Is definitely some things about how do we improve our hiring practices and make sure that we're working more with HBCUs and things of that sort. Diversifying our suppliers, who actually we work with, and having more minority-owned suppliers, providing capital to minority-owned banks. If we think about how, when we think at the community level and the businesses and entrepreneurs that thrive in the community, who's actually providing, that type of capital to them. To skills for employability and making sure that we're providing the necessary digital skills not only to adults and the workforce age, but also most importantly to our youth. Our Microsoft Teals program. If you all don't know that, we'll get the link in the chat. And that's our computer science program going to high schools across the country. And they're making a real effort to get this program in even more of the urban, diverse, primarily minority schools, so that everyone can benefit from us coming in, along with local mentors and tech professionals to serve as mentors to be able to bring the computer science program. And then, when we talk about the digital divide, our airband team, which is, you know, a lot of time was, initially focused on bringing broadband availability to rural area. They're really leaning in on how to help with broadband affordability and device affordability in urban areas, which is, to this day, still a major problem. I mean, a lot of us are very fortunate. Probably if you're watching this, you're probably one of the fortunate. You probably got a laptop, work laptop, personal laptop, tablet, cell phone, all of the above. But still to this day, some of our most vulnerable youth do not have, a laptop or the internet that they need. And, we really must address that if we really want to think about who our future leaders are and what we're doing to make sure that they have what they need. So, before I get to exactly, NTA for short and the nonprofit tech acceleration, which I'll explain, some of you may be unaware of overall of Microsoft philanthropy, some of the great things that we've done. If we look at over the last year, giving away almost $2 billion in donated technology and services to over 240,000 nonprofits worldwide. A very active and caring philanthropies team. And about 3 years ago, this team, Philanthropies, realized we could do more, and more in terms of what I like to call wraparound assistance in terms of tech innovation and tech adoption. It's not just enough to, which some philanthropic arms do, just give out money and just here it is, and you should use it for this or you shouldn't use it for that, and good luck. But actually understanding that nonprofits need a lot more. Coming from nonprofit, I know firsthand, some of the struggles that they face as far as, lack of staff, budget, and things of that sort. So providing, a dedicated arm within Microsoft that's not only, spearheading going out to have the discounted and free licenses of our solutions, but also, which I think is the biggest thing, a solutions team headed by CTO Eric Arnold, who's really spearheading the technologies that we're building that are specific for nonprofits. When we think of, I always kind of look at it as two things, and I tell nonprofits is one is getting your house in order, and then the things that you're doing to, extend to your beneficiaries. And a lot of the getting the house in order is very much needed. The tools that you need so that you can, manage volunteers, manage donors, fundraise, manage your programs, all of those things that are necessary that for-profit entities don't have to do. We're TSI, Tech Social Impact, TSI, is building out solutions specific for those nonprofits so that they can really succeed, with like I said, some of the limited staff and resources that they usually have. But then also as we extend out to who they're serving, whether that is our Microsoft Community Training Platform. We should get that link in there for y'all to check that out. And what Microsoft Community Training is essentially a learning management platform that we've put together that you can deploy relatively quickly, which allows nonprofit organizations, which so much of them are providing some form of curriculum, some type of programming, some type of skilling that they need to be able to deliver to your beneficiaries in a manner that's easy for them. And especially with the pandemic, we saw a lot of organizations just unable to meet in person and be able to do those normal activities. And to be honest, just getting on a Zoom or Teams call is not the same. I mean, just actually putting two people in front of a camera is not the same. I think there's probably some parents with some young kids out at home that's like, yeah, I can't wait for them to go back to school, because this just sitting them in front of a computer does not work. But when you have to, how can you do more? And I think Microsoft Community Training gives a way for you to be able to have that platform that you can completely brand as your organization. There's a mobile app as well, where you can upload your content, videos, existing PowerPoint decks, et cetera, so that you can have that structured learning where they can go through lessons and practice quizzes and exams, and then be able to track the progress. I kind of call it, offline, but online, after, this, a session and someone's teaching or mentoring, and then they hang up, what do you do? How do you keep them engaged? And having some type of platform like that is just really critical. And I think one of the other things that's really important that we have a heavy focus on is a lot of nonprofits may not understand the huge importance of the data that they have and the data that they need to have. So with things like our nonprofit data warehouse Quick Start, helping organizations to understand just the pure power of them being able to be at the center of all the data that they're collecting, be able to have it in a central place, and then be able to do all those advanced things, those analytics, those AI, those machine learning, all those cool words that a lot of people say, I need to do that, we need to do that. But you can't do it till you have the data, and you have the data in a way that's beneficial. So we really want them to understand that, because if you think of the work nonprofits do, is so much of it is human changing behavior. And the quicker you can realize whether what you're doing is down the right path or down the wrong path, you can pivot if need be. I don't think you have the time. A lot of the work that's happening with nonprofits, they may not feel the effects of them for 5, 10, 15, or even more years later. You really need to be able to understand what you're doing, and then what's the actual impact. So that is what Tech for Social Impact and TSI has been helping nonprofits across the globe over the last 3 years do, as part of their digital transformation to the cloud. One example, and hopefully we can get the link in the chat to a case study, work with American Cancer Society, and the pandemic hit them really hard, really hard, to where literally their biggest, after everybody was working remotely, the actual building that they're in was their biggest expense. So that's when we our team mobilized and was able to help them move to the Azure cloud. And keep American Cancer, up and running like it should be, and being able to do the great work that they do. But that's one of many examples of what the team globally has been doing. So when we think back to, some of those racial equity commitments that I mentioned, some work began way back on June 11th. I told you Satya's blog came on June 23rd, but even a couple of weeks prior to that, we did some brainstorming within TSI of what can we do. how can we take our expertise, the things that I just mentioned, and, level the playing field in technology. That's what I like to call, this kind of mission that we're on. And that is where and when the nonprofit Tech Acceleration for Black and African American Communities was born, or NTA for short. And it was, how do we take that Tech for Social Impact framework and, put it in a way that we really can target and address the marginalized communities all across this country that really need it. And what that looks like is very much a grassroots, community-based approach where, we're trying to get to, every, nonprofit across this country serving the Black and African American community, whether it is a one-person nonprofit or a two-person nonprofit. You're not too small for this opportunity. And, what this allows these organizations to do is to come into this program, and we wanted to really build an experience for them. And when I say that experience, Microsoft is a massive company, as you all know. And, you just can't really easily pick up the phone and, hey, can I talk to someone at Microsoft? I got a question. I mean, I was a Microsoft developer for 20 years, and, I had to just bing, my issue. There was no calling the hotline to get some help. So I think what's, really important about this is to, be able to help this community in a way that this community really needs to be helped, is to be able to get them as close to the technology as possible. So when they actually sign up within no more than 2 days, but it's usually within a day, they're on the phone. They're on the phone with someone as part of our concierge team, who is, getting to know them as a nonprofit, understanding exactly what their need is, their barriers, their roadblocks, and then actually playing air traffic controller and getting them to our specialists that can really, really help them in whatever it is. Not only is it activating our technologies, but then, jump starting them into doing some of the more advanced things. You know, a lot of organizations out here don't understand the basics behind a CRM. They are still, very much paper. To me, even, Excel is paper at this point. So getting them up on a CRM, getting them up on some of those management platforms that I mentioned, getting them to leverage the Microsoft 365 suite, not only because it's the best suite in the world, but it, really gets them away from this hodgepodge of technologies that often, to be frank and honest, in the Black community, may not feel that the Microsoft technology is there for me. This doesn't fit. I'm not big enough for that. So I'll just download, the free G Suite, and then I'm using Zoom, and then I'm using Slack, and then before you know it, they just got 15 different pieces of technology. But at the end of the day, it really has them a lot less inefficient than what they need to be. And they really lack a lot of the collaboration that they need. So those are the type of things that we're doing with organizations. We're getting them on the community training platform that I mentioned. We are, getting their feet wet in the Azure cloud with the $3,500 sponsorship to host their websites, to build chatbots, to run lab services for their classrooms. All the things that can really, take their mission to the next level. And we can't do it all. As some of y'all may know, Microsoft really relies on our partner ecosystem. When need be, we really rely on our partners. And, it's a personal mission of mine to, find as many of our partners that is truly empathetic to this audience. And not only understand that these are nonprofits, these are small nonprofits, but those that, really leaning on us to be able to, do a warm handoff for someone who really cares. So, whether that's working with organizations like the Black Channel Partner Alliance, and, fostering and uplifting more of our Black-led partners, also back to that racial equity commitment of diverse in our suppliers, so that we can kind of make those geographically relevant connections. To be frank and honest, there's a culture piece here. So making sure that as these nonprofits experience big bad Microsoft, and then we have to, bring them over to someone, that they're really bringing them over to someone that truly understands them. Um, we only got a couple minutes and time is flying by. I had way more to talk to y'all about. But I think it's a couple points that is really, really important for me to hit on. One is, I think we need to, when we talk about transforming these communities through access to skilling, is understanding the ways to reach the community. And one of those is, let's look at how and who we're using to deliver a lot of this skilling. There's a lot of great nonprofits, from Dream Quartet to Per Scola, to Bite Back, who are really, wanting to embrace, the Microsoft curriculum to be able to bring it to their communities. I urge you that if other organizations that are doing things in the community, for them to be able to tap into, into our curriculum and be able to bring that. But then also thinking about, how do we relate, and what does the new nerd look like? And I have to shout out an amazing young 16-year-old man. His name is Ian Brock. Check him out. It's Dream Hustle Code, dreamhustlecode.com. 16-year-old founder of a nonprofit that, in my opinion, is, the new way and how we need to, reach our young Black and brown youth. And, no better way to teach them coding from someone that actually looks like them, relates to them, because I tell you, I've been on, done a lot of mentoring sessions and different things, and I think I'm relating to them. And it's always two or three in the back of the class that are like this, and they're upset. Why? Because I'm an adult. So I think, when we think about how to reach this community, really think about who's delivering the message. I think that would be really key. And then I think the other thing that I want to hit on really quick is, now back to this point of where we meet them, but how we're meeting them. I think some of y'all are catching on to the gaming and esports phenomenon, and I think that's something that we truly need to embrace. Whether it's an organization like Game Heads out of the Bay Area, which is actually teaching youth not only to code games, but they're actually building real games. Let me back up. Not only are they teaching them coding games, they're teaching them all the things that they need to with proper software development from CI and CD. But like I said, they're also teaching them to build real games and manage them games. And then the one other organization I want to put on your map is Community. It's actually an X instead of an O. They are hot, they are fresh. They created the first HBCU esports league, where they average about 1 million viewers on Twitch every week. But that's not all that they do. They have a K through 12 skilling program, where they're preparing students not only for college, but career readiness, and leveraging esports and everything behind esports for a lot of the training and curriculum. Because unfortunately, 86% of Black teens play gaming, but only 2% are in the gaming industry. What Community is doing, and what we need much more organization to do, is to teach our young Black and brown boys and girls, how do they go from just being consumers of technology to producers of technology. So with that said, I hope you all learned something. I hope this wasn't too fast. I wanted to get through a lot of information. Thank you for joining. Another link for you. If you know any nonprofit that fits this demographic that I mentioned, that is doing anything in these communities, please have them go to aka.ms/Microsoft Communities, where they can sign up for the program and get some of this goodness that the team is giving out and Microsoft is getting out. I saw some questions come through. I really wanted to get through some of this, and I got more note cards. There was more I wanted to say, but I'm very much a people person. Talk to Darrell, TALKTODARRELL is my Twitter, it's my IG, DM me, whatever, all the kids, whatever they do now, just find me on that, hit me up. I'll love to talk to you, because I really want to scream from the mountaintops and be able to tell the world about this opportunity to be able to help transform our community. So thank you all. Enjoy Ignite, and I'm out.